Good morning to you. Thanks for stopping by. Angela from Creating It. So glad you're here. And today I wanted to show you how to actually knit on double pointed needles. I know a lot of you are wondering how you actually knit and work on these once you've cast on your stitches. But how do I keep knitting and how do I use this fourth needle in order to keep going? So in this example, I'm going to show you how you would knit if you cast on your stitches onto 3 double pointed needles and then using your fourth needle as your working needle. And as a bonus tip, I'm also going to show you how to join in the round without losing a stitch. Now, some of you have been saying that you are losing a stitch when you join this together, and I think I've got an idea of what's going on. So grab your needles and let's get to knitting on double pointed needles. Okay, we are ready to go. So I have my stitch marker here. I have my working needle, and then I divided 18 stitches evenly among 3 double pointed needles. So now let's go ahead and join in the round. And we're going to start by inserting our hook into that left stitch and then just letting it pop off that needle just like so. Now let's go over to the stitch on our right needle right here, and we're going to lift that up and over and onto the other needle. Now I think this is the part where the stitch is being lost and being just dropped off. So this is where we want to be really careful. So go ahead and insert your needle under that stitch, and let's bring it over this one and onto the other needle. So here we go. So this part is a little tricky, but just take your time. Okay, and there we go. And I think what's happening in the process is instead of that stitch being put on that other needle, it's being dropped off onto this stitch right here. All right, so as you can see, what we did here was we basically crisscrossed these two stitches. We had them swap places. So now we have joined in the round, got our working yarn here, and now you are ready to get started knitting in the round. So we have our stitch marker here, and we're going to begin by working on this needle. But we don't want to put our stitch marker on yet because it will just fall off. So we're actually going to work one stitch first and then place our stitch marker. Okay, so go ahead and work your first stitch. Okay, and once you've worked your first stitch, place your stitch marker onto that needle, and then holding it very carefully, we're going to work your next stitch. And there you go, and that's what keeps your stitch marker on when you're working in the round. Now another tip is as you're working your stitches here on this needle, you're going to only pay attention to these needles that you see right here. These are your 2 working needles. These other needles will feel awkward, but they're actually being held on by the stitches, so they're not going anywhere. So you just ignore them and focus on the only 2 needles that you're working on. So I'll go ahead and finish working this row here. And they will clang around a little bit and move, but that's okay. And your first round that you're going to be working, that's going to be your most awkward because that's when you don't have a lot of product holding it together. As you build and create more of your project, you will see that it will become a lot more stable feeling. Okay. Okay, so we worked one row right there. Now let's go ahead and work onto our other needle. Now remember, focus on your only 2 needles here. That's the only ones you need to worry about. Okay. And when you do that first stitch that joins those two sections together right there, sometimes you can give it a little tug just to kind of make sure there's no gap, because sometimes that can happen too. All right. Now go ahead and work the next stitches on this needle. And you can see what we're doing is we're basically transferring the stitches from one needle onto the next needle as we work. So this was the needle that had our stitches on it, but now it has become our working needle. Now go ahead and scooch those to the middle. You want to make sure you kind of keep your stitches to the middle of your needle so that you don't accidentally lose them. Now we just turn, and now we get ready to work the stitches on our next needle. All right, so we'll go ahead and work that last section there. And sometimes they can be a little tight at first. Okay, we're almost to the end right here. Okay, so you have worked an entire round of your stitches, and you can see here your stitch marker will always tell you where the beginning of your round is. Remember, there's one stitch, which is your first stitch, but we put our stitch marker between those two right there. And then every time you work all the way around, you know you've done one row or one round. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to work several rows so you can see what it looks like as you start building your pattern downward and your needles become a lot more stable. Here is my sample that I created where I knit in the round several rows so you can see what the stitches look like as they start building downward. It creates a tube-like pattern to it, which is perfect for socks or any garment that you want in a tube. So just remember that every time you work around and you get back to your stitch marker, you have worked one round. And the more you build your pattern, the more stable your needles will get. I remember in the beginning when I was working on a sock project and it was really rickety at first. But with practice, it will become really easy for you and your hands will actually get muscle memory with it, which is really cool. So I hope you had a great time learning this. Let me know if you have any questions. So that is how you knit in the round on double pointed needles. Now, if you didn't get it the first time, don't worry. Just go back and watch the video again and then you'll get it. Now, this process can actually be worked as well on 4 double pointed needles with a 5th needle as your working needle. It's pretty much the same. You're just going to be dividing your stitches on 4 needles instead of 3. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments below. And thank you so much for stopping by. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye. And I know you're so avoid that little doodad. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that too. I wish the clouds would go away. I know they look like chopsticks, but they're not. They're actually knitting needles.